Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our summer camp roundtable meeting. Happy to have you all here with us tonight. This is the fourth one of these virtual roundtables we've had so far this season since February. I think it's been a pretty successful endeavor. Our goal has been to keep you guys in the loop, understanding that this has been a very unique spring and early summer season for us in terms of opening up a camp, and with everything that's going on, trying to keep people up to date as to where things are. This has proved to be a pretty nice means of communication. This meeting is, of course, open to all, so any parents who wanted to join. And we are recording this, and the meeting will be posted to our YouTube page this evening or tomorrow, first thing tomorrow morning. So if you have anybody that wasn't able to make it tonight that would like to see this, you can feel free to just share the video with them, and they can get all the information that they need straight from us. So with that said, let me share my screen here. We're getting closer, right? Getting closer to the beautiful days out on Davitt Lake. Felt like summer this weekend, so it certainly felt like real, like we're in the heat of it. So, all right. The latest, where we start off with here. We had merit badge registration, online merit badge registration for weeks 1 through 4 opened up on the 1st. That is still open. So if you have scouts that have not yet registered, we've got crossovers that are still coming in, provisional scouts that are jumping in. They can still be, obviously be registered. If your troop has not yet registered scouts for their merit badges, they can certainly do that as well. This was a unique experience for us. I know Waukpamity has been doing online merit badge registration for a few years. This is the first time that we've been doing that at Rotary, and it's a new platform for all of us. So, but the feedback that I've gotten from some folks that I heard from was that it went pretty smoothly. So if there were any concerns or questions anybody had, feel free to let me know. But I think that worked out pretty well, and that's going to be a useful tool for us. I'll jump down just because it's kind of connected to that. I do want to ask you to please update within your unit rosters that are in the Black Pug system, the scouting event system there. Please make sure that you have put a contact phone number and contact email address for each of your scouts. It doesn't have to be the scout, it can be the parent. If you're not going to put a 12-year-old or 11-year-old's contact information, that's fine. But we really need to have that contact information for each person. And it's the same place that you did the merit badge signups. You just go into that same screen and you'll see that there was a spot for email address, and then down below you have a choice between adding home or mobile or work phone numbers. You put a phone number in there for us. That's going to be really critical for us this year if we ever do have to do any contact tracing, to be able to have direct communication. And we also really want to be able to communicate directly with the parents and the families as we're coming into summer camp with things like our COVID protocols, reminders for some of the things related to those protocols that I'll talk about a little bit later on. Not that we don't trust that you're going to pass on the messages that I send to the unit leaders, but it really helps if we have direct communication directly to the families to send those reminders out so that there's not a delay in that kind of communication. So I noticed that a lot of units had done that already and gone in. I appreciate that. There's a few that I think still need to go back in and add the email addresses and phone numbers for each of their adult and youth participants. And so I'd appreciate it if you could take care of that soon. STEM week schedule, we still don't have that finalized yet. I'm told that it should be ready very soon. I really appreciate the STEM committee, the council STEM committee, with everything that I've been focusing on the COVID stuff. They're helping me out and taking that on and putting that together for us. So we will, I'm told that we should have a schedule of events, hopefully within the next few days, that we can release to you folks. And then we'll put that out there as soon as I have it. We'll get that out to everybody. And then we'll schedule week 6's opportunity to do their online merit badge registration. So we held back on that until the STEM program was added to the schedule. But basically, whenever we put that out, we'll give probably about 2 weeks just to allow the scouts to see what the schedule is, figure out what they want to do, give you an opportunity if you have a troop meeting or whatever to have those conversations with the scouts, and then collect the information they'd like, and then we'll do the online merit badge registration for that. So it's not going to be the kind of thing where we release the schedule and then the next day merit badge registrations opens up. We know that there's a little bit of a process and support that you need to provide and want to provide for your scouts. So we'll certainly provide that opportunity. Something which I think I mentioned in a previous session is that we're going to do something a little bit different with our trading post operation this year, because for a couple of different reasons. One is we know that parents are not going to be able to come to camp this summer in the way that they normally have in the past. We're not going to be able to have our parents' night on Wednesday nights due to our COVID policies. And we know it's often an opportunity that parents like to, get souvenirs for the kids. We are going to be opening up an online trading post that will have t-shirts and sweatshirts and a whole bunch of other stuff. We're actually seeing this as a really good opportunity also to have a lot of kinds of apparel items that normally we wouldn't stock in a trading post because they're single items and things like that. So a lot of these might have some appeal to some of our adult leaders that have been eyeing the staff's fancy swag that they've had the last years with jackets and vests and stuff like that, all in fancy embroidery and whatnot. So that stuff will be available. As soon as the company is done setting up the store, I'm going to get that information out to you, and you'll be able to order apparel items online. The stuff that is in this online store will not be available in the trading post this summer. We will have other things in the trading post this summer. We will have other items. We'll have camping supplies. We'll have snacks. We'll have, of course, slushies. We will still have a functional trading post this summer, but the 2021 apparel items will be exclusive to the online web store. And the plan is that once that goes live, you'll have the opportunity to order from there. Maybe share it with grandma in Arizona, wants to send her little grandson or granddaughter a camp t-shirt and can order it online and have it waiting for them when they come to camp. Because the way that the plan is to work is that if you order by a certain date for weeks 1 through 3, we will have the items at camp available for you when the scouts come to camp, or when you come to camp if you're ordering something. And then there will be a second date to order by for weeks 4 through 6. And then we'll do a final close, which is August 15th. So anybody that misses one of those first 2 windows will have a computer open in the trading post where people can order stuff online. And as long as it's ordered by the 15th of August when we close, that stuff can be shipped to your home. That's also an option. We can have the stuff delivered to camp, or you can have the stuff shipped to your home. So we hope that you find that as a worthwhile opportunity and an interesting option for the scouts. So we'll have more information on that as soon as the company provides the active links to me. The COVID policy changes, well, there's been a lot, and I'm going to hold that. We'll get to that. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I wanted to get through a couple of other things first. Just a quick reminder that don't forget that the Camp Card program is still out there. So folks that are looking to do a fundraiser, it's a very simple $10 sale. I've got mine sitting here on my desk here, so you can do a $10 sale for one of these camp cards, and it's good for a number of businesses, either in the Capital District area or the Glens Falls and North Country area. And the Scout earns a 50% commission on the sale of that. So it's very clean, very easy. It's actually a bit more simple than the typical popcorn, kind of process perhaps that you've done in the past, but it's a good way to help raise funds for camp. All right. So staff, as I said the last time, we're in really pretty good shape with our staff. We've got a fantastic staff. We've had some meetings already, some conversations already, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend. We're having our first staff weekend, our training weekend, and doing some setup, and this will be our first time to come together as a full group, and we're really excited about that because it's been a long time coming for those of us that miss being back up at camp with the rest of the crew. We do have a couple areas where we could still use some support. Still looking for a full-time training post director. If that's anybody that might have an interest in that position, please let me know as soon as possible. That's an idea. That's one that we're still looking to fill. We could always use some additional support in the kitchen, and we do have room for additional CITs. If anybody is interested, if you have any scouts that are interested in participating in the CIT program, it's a fantastic learning opportunity, great opportunity for 15-year-old scouts to learn about being a part of the staff. And also keep in mind the CIT program, the scouts that are here with us as CITs, half the day they spend working with our staff and learning the ropes as being a staff member, but the other half of the day they are expected to go and work on personal advancement. So they can go earn merit badges, they can go do Project Cope like you can see behind me, you can do BSA Lifeguard, other kinds of programs to earn advancement as they go. And there is an online application. They can go ahead and just submit an application through the website, and I'll get that and contact them soon for an interview. Sorry, I didn't have my chat box open. Yes, we are still, we are planning on doing the troop photos. So that will be done the way we've normally done it in the past. We do a typically on Monday night, weather permitting, we'll do troop photos after dinner, and then from there we will, those get ordered. And for those of you that are new to us, those photos get ordered and they get delivered back to camp by the end of the week. So you'll have them to take home. They come all fancy printed with a fancy border and your troop number and all that kind of information on it and stuff. And that you can pay for that at camp. There's no pre-registration necessary for that. And a simple check or cash is fine. We can, or credit card payment, anything, we can take that in the office. All right, you've seen this before. I promised I was going to show this at every meeting because I want to keep drumming this idea home. Some of the things for planning ahead that we need to make sure everybody has. Medical forms. Photos are $7, Rick. The medical forms, all scouts and adults that are staying 72 hours or more require all 3 parts to the medical form. So all scouts require all the 3 parts of the medical form, period. Okay, they need everything, including the doctor's signature on the last page. Adults, there's that break line at 72 hours. If they're going to stay for more than 72 hours, the adults need the Part C as well with the doctor's signature. An adult that is staying less than 72 hours does not need to give us the Part C. We certainly would be happy to take that and would welcome it. But we do need at least the Part A and Part B from every adult that's going to be coming in. Even if you're just coming in for one night, we do want that Part A and Part B. That's what has the health history. It has your immunization record, which is important this year. It has contact information. Should you have any incidents while you're at camp, we have that information. So everybody needs to turn in a health form. All youth need A, B, and C. All adults that are staying more than 72 hours need A, B, and C. Adults less than 72 hours, just the A and B. We are going to be incorporating, this will be new for us this year, but we are going to incorporate the opportunity for our staff to preview your medical forms if you'd like to have them checked to make sure that things are all set prior to that Sunday arrival. We know, if there's a problem on a Sunday, doctor's offices are closed. It's hard to get a doctor's signature on Sunday. So what we're asking is if you get us the forms for your troop prior to Monday of the preceding week, then our health officer will take a look at those over the next day or two and make sure that the proper signatures are there, all the information is there that's needed. And Tyler will get back to you by Wednesday to let you know if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. So if you want to mail the forms or drop off and deliver the forms to us, we can take those. I would definitely suggest, especially if you're mailing the forms, mail copies, just in case something happens in the US Postal Service and they don't get to us for some reason. But if you want to send copies, not the originals, we will take care of taking a look at that and give you a report on Wednesday of anything that might be missing. It's not going to really speed things up tremendously on Sunday as far as the med check process. That's going to be, the process is what the process is, especially this year with the attestation process that we need to go through. But it will save you hopefully from finding out on a Sunday afternoon when the parents have already left that you're missing a parent's signature or a doctor's signature or something along those lines. Okay. Yes, when I talk about the 72 hours stuff, for the 72-hour rule for adult leaders, that is a cumulative number. So a leader that comes and goes during the week, if they are there for more than 72 hours, even if it's not 72 hours in a row, the Part C rule applies. Same thing with the other other rule that I'll talk about right now, which is the other information that we need for adult leaders. So every adult leader, and that's every adult over the age of 18, whether you consider yourself to be a leader or not, or the leader is that other person with the fancy uniform and the patch on their shoulder. Any adult that is coming to camp needs to be cleared through the state's criminal background check. And every adult that is coming to camp also must have current youth protection certification when they come to camp. Okay, so the Google form that I have shared with the adult leaders or with my email contact list that I've been sending out, that Google form, all you have to do is go in, give me the first and last name, the date of birth, their youth protection certification date, and just answer a yes/no question as to whether the person is registered with BSA. Takes 30 seconds per leader, and you send that in, and I take care of the rest. So it doesn't cost the troop anything. And you don't have to do anything more than that. You're going to give me the information. I send it to the state. They send me back a list that says that everything is taken care of. I would appreciate it. It would be helpful if the out-of-council troops did bring copies of the youth protection certifications, because I can verify youth protection much more easily with our in-council units. I can just have our registrar run reports and verify the youth protection for our units. But if our out-of-council friends could bring copies of your youth protection certifications, yes, I would appreciate that. So that's that. Any questions about that process there? Again, as I've been saying before, my recommendation really is to put any parent, any adult that you think there's even a slight chance that they may decide at the last minute that they want to come up and spend the night at camp because their child is homesick or something like that, put them through this process, because it doesn't cost you anything but 30 seconds of time putting in the data. But if they show up at camp and it's after 5 o'clock and we can't call the state to run them, we're not going to allow them to stay. They're going to have to turn around and drive back home. So please run them through. And this is a great way for your units to do a quick and easy background check on all the parents that are associated with your troop, that are going on your weekend outings and hanging out at your troop dinners and all the rest of the stuff. It's a good opportunity to get a free background check once a year on all of those individuals as well. So any adults that are staying longer than 72 hours, and again, this is a cumulative 72 hours across the week, also by BSA policy needs to be registered with the BSA. They can be registered as a merit badge counselor, a member of your troop committee, an assistant scoutmaster. It doesn't matter how they're registered, but they do need to be registered with the BSA through an adult application that includes the criminal background check through BSA. That process doesn't take just 24 hours. So if you're going to register somebody and give them time to run that through the office and submit it and do the background check and everything, we'd ask that you please submit that, well before you come to camp. Actually, I'd be saying like now would be the time to be submitting that for anyone coming to camp this summer. Okay. Any questions on that part, on that process? Last time I checked, I had something like about 250 names or so, 250, 260 names, which is good. That still seems light for the number of names that we would normally have for a full season, but I have not yet gone through to match up what troops I've got versus the troops that are signed up for camp to see which troops haven't submitted any yet. So if you could please get those in as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Something else that I'm going to try this year, especially since these Zoom meetings have been, I think, pretty successful in communicating. I'm planning to do a leader meeting the week prior to you coming to camp. This would basically take the place of most of what you would normally do on a Sunday night leader meeting, where we sit there and kind of talk about camp policies and stuff like that. So it's not going to be like this type of meeting where it's like, hey, anybody and everybody comes in. I mean, anybody's welcome, but this would really be a meeting that's intended for the scoutmaster or the unit leaders that are going to be coming to camp. And we'll talk about some of the nitty gritty of policies and operations for camp, especially since for many of you, this will be your first time coming to us. So we'll talk about, things like, menus and duty rosters and all that kind of fun stuff that gets done on the first day of camp. But we're going to do that a week ahead of time on the Monday before. Tentatively, that's my plan, is Mondays at 8. If that schedule changes, I will let you guys know. But that would be the plan. We'd ask each troop to please send one representative. I will send out the link to each week to let you know when and where that is. Question about getting a list of who's been submitted. Yeah, if you want to shoot me an email, I can respond to that with a list of who's been submitted for the form. You should also be receiving confirmation email with everyone that you submit. But if you've lost those emails, just send me an email and I will let you know who's been submitted for your troop. Okay, anything else on this? And this is just what the form looks like. It's just a simple Google form. You just select your unit number, enter the data, hit send, you're good to go. Now to what we've all been waiting for, the fun stuff. All right, so our COVID regulations. And this has been, shall we say, a rather interesting last couple of months. Just to kind of give you a little bit of where we've been in the last 2 months in particular. On April 24th, the CDC released their federal guidelines for what they thought camps should be doing this summer. And as I think I've said before and shared with you before, the CDC issues federal guidelines, but it is up to the states to enact those into law and policy, right? So basically the CDC is in a sense making recommendations based on science and the evidence that they're collecting. And the states typically will use the CDC guidelines as a foundation for their guidelines. But the states have the ability to match them, change them, not recognize and do whatever. As you may know, CDC several months ago said that schools could have social distancing of just 3 feet within the schools. That I think happened in, say, February maybe. And New York State has continued to keep a 6-foot physical distancing in schools throughout the rest of the year. So they simply chose not to go with that standard. So what we've been waiting for a while was for New York to come out with their standards, which they finally did on May 19th, excuse me. And we have had our council health and safety team, which I really want to put a shout out to that group. They have been doing some yeoman's work over the last couple of months. We've got a number of folks that you guys, I won't go through everybody because I don't want to miss anybody, but we've had some really dedicated scouters, doctors, EMTs, nurses, public health sanitarians, a couple of camp directors who are there just like, kind of learning as laymen from the pros, have been working on this for the last couple of months. So we met after the New York State guidelines came out, and we had begun to update the document that I had previously released after the CDC standards. And just when we were ready to put that out to you guys, we got word that the CDC was about to issue an update. So we held that back, saying, okay, we want to be transparent with everyone, but we don't want to confuse people by yo-yoing, standards in and out as everything keeps changing. So we held back a couple of days. The CDC standards were updated just before Memorial Day weekend on May 28th. Then I wanted to look and say, okay, it's now New York's move to see if New York, because the standards had become a little bit more lax in some areas, wanted to see if New York would match that. You probably saw the letter that came out from the New York State Health Commissioner on Friday evening of last week. That got everybody all abuzz. In which he was talking about ending, the masks in schools on Monday and all that kind of stuff. That was a letter from the health commissioner basically saying to the CDC, this is what we're thinking about doing, but we want you to tell us if there's any reason why we should or should not. And basically the CDC, as well as the state education department, both came back and said, no, don't do that for schools. So they didn't. But the state, so we had another meeting of our health and safety committee last night. We hashed out a bunch of things, finalized, some stuff. And just to give you an idea of how frequently this stuff changes, from the time that we met at this hour last night to when I woke up this morning and started eating breakfast this morning, the state had released new guidelines. And so some of the things that I'm about to share with you have changed in the last 24 hours and changed in a positive way. They've made it a little bit easier for us. So I'm happy that they changed, but this is just to kind of give you a little idea of how frequently things have been moving around. The other thing that you may have noticed if you caught any of the governor's press conference yesterday is that he said that New York State currently is at 68.6% vaccination rate, and that if the state gets to 70%, that he is prepared to basically lift most of the COVID regulations that are in place. Related to social distancing, masking, a whole bunch of other stuff, a lot of the stuff that's remaining in place. And they were estimating that could be anywhere between like 8 days from now till maybe around July 4th. So it is entirely possible that everything I tell you right now could be loosened up again between now and the start of camp. I'm not exactly confident of that because they did say that some things, some masking requirements and whatnot would still be kept in for things like schools and prisons. And I always like to link schools and prisons together, especially when I'm talking with my students. Schools and prisons and other, kind of community-based settings and things like that. So they may keep some of the stuff for summer camps, but they seemed really eager to pretty much lift the lid as soon as we hit 70% in the next couple of weeks. And that's 70% of people getting their first dose, not necessarily completing it. So, all right, enough preamble. So that's just kind of where that's why I think we've been a little bit silent in the last couple of weeks as we've been waiting for all this roller coaster to play out a little bit. So some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about tonight mirrors what I talked about during our last meeting and was in our original draft document, but there are some new things and I will highlight those. We are asking for folks to basically do a 10-day voluntary pre-quarantine, self-quarantine prior to coming to camp. What does that mean? It basically means just don't take any special chances, right? Not going to, you know, a mosh pit with your 2,000 of your favorite friends or something like that 2 days before coming to camp. But it means trying to avoid large crowds and doing things that might create a greater chance for exposure, particularly for those who are unvaccinated. We strongly encourage all those who are eligible to be vaccinated. That you'll see there's some differences between vaccinated and unvaccinated. I really strongly encourage everyone who's eligible to get that vaccination. It is not required, but it is strongly encouraged. Everybody is going to need to, when they get to camp, you will complete the council attestation checklist. You're probably all familiar with doing something very similar at your places of work or school. Everybody, you know, check off that, you know, the 4 or 5 questions about your symptoms and exposures. We have, one of the other things that the Health and Safety Committee finalized last night is we now have a standard uniform Twin Rivers Council version of an attestation form that will be used for all of our events. That will be getting used for our summer camp experience as well. And can't stress this enough. Do not come to camp if the scout or yourself as an adult is experiencing any symptoms, has been recently diagnosed with COVID, is awaiting test results from COVID, or has been in close contact with somebody who has tested positive. And that includes somebody driving the kids up to camp, right? Last thing we want is somebody who is experiencing symptoms driving 2 or 3 kids up to camp, even if they're planning on turning around and going home, and you've now just exposed these kids in a car for, you know, 45 minutes or an hour, and then unleash them into the camp population. So please, this would be for people that are driving, people that are coming, leaders that are coming to camp, campers themselves. There is one exception to this, which is that last part there. If you have been in close contact with someone who has tested positive, but you are asymptomatic, you or a scout are asymptomatic and vaccinated, they can still come to camp. If they're not vaccinated or if they're experiencing any symptoms and they've been in contact with somebody who has tested positive, then they are considered a contact. They need to stay home. Okay. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. This is a newer part. Okay, and this is directly from the state regulations is what is required, and that is a pre-camp screening. So upon arrival, everyone that is coming to camp, that is staff members, adults, youth, anybody that is coming to camp has to, yeah, Rick, the attestation form is going to be a part of the mitigation plan. The mitigation plan document, the update, I'm going to put out on the website and release to you guys tonight after this meeting is over, so you'll have that. The attestation form will be on our website, so you will have that information. So you'll have this document in much more detail after I'm done talking. We'll put that up there for you guys. So everybody that is coming to camp to participate in camp, upon arrival, must present one of these 4 things, documentation of one of these 4 things. Either proof of vaccination, that you are fully vaccinated. Fully vaccinated means that you are 2 weeks beyond the last shot required for your cycle. So if it's the Johnson & Johnson shot where it's just 1 shot, you got to be 2 weeks past that 1 shot. If it's the Pfizer or the Moderna, you've got to be 2 weeks past the 2nd shot for that to be considered fully vaccinated. So please bring proof of that. Or, because we know a lot of our scouts are not eligible for the vaccine yet, or people may be not taking the vaccine. If that's the case, you need to have a test result, a negative PCR test, or the fancy language in here is an NAAT test of comparable analytical sensitivity, but I think you're mostly just going to see references to PCR tests, that was performed on a specimen or swab collected within 72 hours prior to arrival at camp. Now, 72 hours prior to arrival at camp takes you back to Thursday at 1 in the afternoon. So basically anytime Thursday afternoon, after that, that's the window for taking a PCR test. PCR tests these days are running about 24, 48 hours for turnaround time on test results. Some may go a little bit longer than that. So if you're going to do a PCR test, I would recommend that it be done as early within that 72-hour window as possible to make sure that the results are back before you come to camp, because we need to have that negative result for that person to stay in camp. The other option, this is one of the things that literally just got added overnight, is that the state is now also accepting the rapid antigen test, which means you can do the rapid test. Brad, yeah, for you guys that are arriving on Saturday, yes, you could backdate that to Wednesday. So the rapid test has to be done within 6 hours of arriving at camp. So that means you got to do it Sunday morning. But there are facilities that you can do that. In fact, it might be the kind of thing you do it on your way to camp. You know, stop and group all goes into the facility, gets their rapid tests, and continues on to camp. And those you'll get the result usually within an hour. So that this is anybody coming to resident camp. So yes, this would include Cub Scouts coming during. Oh, actually, day camp. You know, Rob, I got to look at the day camp because let me double check on the day camp, Rob. I've been paying much more attention to the resident camp side, so I've got to double check that one. I don't want to give you bad information, but it does apply to those coming to the Cub Scout resident camp during week 5. Okay, the antigen test, again, has to be done within 6 hours of coming to camp. So that would be one that you could do on the morning of. The other option is if you have recovered from a laboratory confirmed case of COVID within the last 3 months, then you bring proof of that, and that's one of the 4 options as well. So these are the 4 things. We need one of these for every single person coming to camp. Okay. Okay. Now, a little bit more information on that. And this is one of the reasons I was very happy to see that this got added in the last 24 hours. The rapid test got added, because until yesterday, that was not part of the protocols from the state. Reason for that is that insurance companies right now are no longer required to pay for a diagnostic test unless you are doing so because you've got symptoms or because it's been basically prescribed by a doctor. So if you're doing it on a voluntary basis to be able to gain admission to a camp or activities or things like that, your insurance company may not pay for that. And so that means there's a cost associated with the test. The PCR test is $130 usually for a site. The rapid test, which just got added yesterday, is $30. So it's a much cheaper option, much more affordable option for families that need to get that test. This is a New York thing. The rapid antigen tests, my understanding from what I've been told from our health and safety committee helped us out with this, is that New York made a deal with some of the companies. And so that's where the cheaper tests are going for $30. For our friends out of state, particularly down in Maryland, I don't know if you'll be able to get it for that price. I'm not sure what the price is going for down there. But this organization here, Quest Labs, is one place that's doing it. It's not the only place that's doing it. I will put out the link to this Quest Labs group. They are doing the $30 rapid test, but you can Google it, you know, for your location and find out who is doing this. There are lots of other places that are doing these tests. Either PCRs, I think PCRs are more common to find, but there are a lot of other facilities, whether they be the walk-in clinics, the pharmacies are doing a lot of them, things like that. Now, most of them I think are still doing PCRs, but there are places you can usually search to do, like I looked recently and I think there was like a Walgreens in Albany, downtown Albany, that was doing the rapid tests, as well as Quest Labs and a few other sites. I know there are Quest Labs, that's a national company. So I looked, there are some in Southern Maryland. I didn't get a chance to see how close to you guys it was, but they're around the country. But the $30 deal might be a New York thing, but that is an option there. The folks that are dropping off do not need to do this. This is not something, if you're a parent that's just dropping the kids off in the parking lot, waving and going home, you do not need any testing. You need to make sure that you're not symptomatic as you're driving them up. So taking a look at the attestation form and making sure that you meet the criteria in the attestation form is a good idea. But no, you do not need to get a test to drive people to camp. This is anybody that's coming into camp has to meet one of those 4 criteria that we talked about. So if you are vaccinated, you don't need to do this. Okay, I want to stress that, right? Anybody that is vaccinated does not need a test. If you have gotten COVID and recovered from it within the last 3 months and have documentation of that, you do not need a test. This test applies to anyone who is not vaccinated and has not recovered from COVID within the last 3 months. So I will send out some links to information of places that I found which has this information or has the testing available. But quite honestly, it's pretty easy, Googleable. Just put in rapid test near me, and you're going to get a Google map that pops up with a whole bunch of them. I did look at this Quest Labs. I noticed that the furthest north they go is Malta. So, but this might actually be, as I said, since you got to do it on Sunday morning anyway, it may be for our units that are coming from further north. You just stop in Malta on the way down, see if you can get appointments or do the thing on the way into camp. Stop in Malta, get the tests, continue on to camp. That could be the way to approach that. But there are several facilities for Quest Labs around the Capital District. There are lots of other places around the country, including Maryland. I looked at. There's a bunch of them downstate, but I did notice that the furthest north they went was Malta. Questions about this pre-screening process? Because I know this is a little bit new, and this is one that I know parents are going to have a lot of questions about.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
With the documentation for the scouts who are vaccinated, is a copy of their card good enough, or do you need to see the original?
Copy of the card's fine.
Okay. And for the adults, we can. I'm sorry. For the adults, we can just show our cell phone that we've got the Empire passport or whatever it's called.
Sure. If you've got that too, we'll accept that as well. It would be helpful, even if you've got the Empire passport or if you've got a copy of the card or something like that, we are asking that you attach it to a copy of it to the health forms, just so that, when you showing it on the phone is fine. But like if we have to quarantine, if we have to do any contact tracing or something like that, we're pulling out health forms. It would be very helpful to have all of the health forms with the certifications, right attached to them. So we're not going back and saying, oh yeah, Rob had it on his form. We've got that. So if you would document it on the medical form where it's got the vaccinations, I think there's a spot to put in like an extra line. You can add the vaccination date and then put a photocopy of the vaccination card to the medical form. So we do not need that ahead of time. You just send that in with the medical form, and that's good to go. So if you're going to send in your medical forms for the pre-clearance, obviously you're not going to be able to send in any test results for the pre-clearance of the med forms because you're going to be doing that the weekend of your arrival. But if you've got a vaccination card, you attach it to the medical form, send it to us by that Monday. That's great. If you just bring the medical forms up with you on Sunday, that's fine too, as long as the vaccination card copy is attached to that. Bob, was that a question if they were open on Sunday morning, or were you telling us? Because I'm not sure. I did not look at this yet.
Yes. Question.
I did not look. I do not know. And there's different locations, and hours and whatnot may vary by location. So I think your best bet is to look for the locations nearest you and check to see what their schedule is.
The one in Malta is not open on Sundays.
Okay. Well, that Quest Labs is not the only facility that does these. That was one that was given to me. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the testing protocol stuff? Okay. So check-in begins at 1 o'clock on Sundays. We do ask that people please do not start gathering until 12:30. Doesn't take that long for everybody to get congregated and gather. And really, we don't want people congregated and gathered for a long time because remember, you haven't gone through COVID protocols yet when you're in the parking lot. So we really don't want people gathered and lingering for a long period of time. Troops will gather up there. Troop guide, or one of our staff members, will come up and greet you and escort the troop down to the campsite. The only people that are to leave to go beyond the campsite are the youth and adults that are staying in camp. Any adults that are just providing transportation, dropping the scouts off, should be getting back, waving, getting back in the car and heading back out when the troop leaves. I did get a question about, what if the guy that's hauling the trailer is not staying around? Can he still take the trailer down to the site? Yes, he can still take the trailer down, drop off the trailer at the campsite, but then get back in the car and head out. What we want the people that are not staying, that are not going through our protocols, to not be lingering. they need to leave and head back out as soon as we've taken control of the group. So that's that. And then part of that process is when the unit leader, when the troop guide comes and takes the troop down to the campsite, the scoutmaster should come to see me and bring, any documentation that we need to resolve as far as the registration. Should go pretty quickly and easily because you've already done your payments online, but I've got some paperwork to give you and things like that. But that we'll process through that. The adult leader that comes down to the office to do that check-in should not take their health forms with them. Give the health forms to another leader that's going down to the site, because sometimes you're up in the office and you may be there a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of line or something like that, and the troop is down at the campsite ready to start their med checks. The health officer's waiting, but they can't do it because you've got the health forms. So send the health forms with the scouts and leaders, the other leaders that are going down to the site. Our medical screening process, actually, most of our process doesn't actually have to change for COVID in the way we've done this. We have not done the march everybody past one single, nurse that scout camps are known for in a very long time. We have a process where we have a team of people that will go out, typically 3 to 4, sometimes more individuals that will go out, spread out through the camp, and your troop guide will take you to the campsite, give the scouts the opportunity to drop their gear in their tents, get whatever medications they have, and then the guide will take you to the medical officer who will be pre-positioned in one of a few locations very close to your campsite. So, and one of the nice things about this also is that the guide can kind of keep an eye, and if there's already a troop at the medical officer and it's going to take them 10 minutes or something like that, you guys can be continuing to unpack your bags, set up the tents, set up your campsite, things like that while you're waiting, so there's no wasted time. And then once it's clear at the medical officer, they'll take you over to the medical officer who will do the normal review of the medical form, all the things that we would always do, checking for signatures and all that kind of stuff. We'll do the intake interview. That's going to be going through the questions on the attestation form. Everybody's going to get a temperature check. And if everything goes smoothly, you're cleared to go and you're all done. So as I said before, medical forms will be accepted in advance if you want to get them to us by Monday of the prior week, and we'll hold on to those forms until you arrive on Sunday, or you can bring them up Sunday when you come. But if you're not sending them to us to check, I highly recommend that you are asking your scouts' parents to provide the medical forms as early before camp as possible so that you can go through and make sure that the signatures are where they need to be and everything's all set, and that you have all the forms rather than relying on them to bring the forms with them on Sunday morning. We will be using cohorts for the troops, and what that means is, one of the things we were waiting on from New York State is to say what size of group is a cohort, and the number from New York State was 36 kids, not including staff. And for Department of Health purposes, you all are considered staff. So we don't have any troops that are going to be in excess of 36. We don't have any campsites that are going to be in excess of 36, even with combined troops, which is good because what that does is it allows us to make a campsite a cohort. So within that campsite, you guys have, the freedom to have more interaction. We ask you to try to maintain a social distancing of 3 feet within the campsite, but really the idea is to try to keep them closer together. One thing that we do need to do when they leave the campsite to go out to their merit badge programs and other activities is that we do need to maintain a 6-foot separation between people in between cohorts. So when they're in merit badge sessions, the scout from Tuscarora and the scout from Iroquois should be sitting 6 feet apart from one another in the merit badge sessions. And the way we're going to monitor that is that when they go through the med checks, every participant is going to be given a colored wristband like you get at the fair. For each campsite will have its own color. So when you're sitting in a program area, I got red and blue. You guys should be sitting 6 feet away from each other. It's easier to see that. That'll be for adults as well as youth. That the cohorts are not supposed to connect with one another. And the staff will be, my staff will be our own cohort. So we will ask them to, you still need to do the buddy system. Please make sure you stress that, just like in scout camp normally. Scouts, when they're walking between program areas, should be walking with a buddy. If they have to walk from handicrafts to community safe or handicrafts to the waterfront, and there's not another scout from their troop that's going in that direction, they can still walk with a troop from another cohort, just walk 6 feet apart from another. And they can walk together and still do the buddy thing. And same thing with partners in program activities. Tents, we did confirm through New York State that double occupancy is permitted within the tents. That was one thing that we were waiting to hear for a little while. That was confirmed. So we have no concerns about that. But in the tents, people have to sleep head to toe. So they can't be facing the same direction inside the tent. The head to toe is what gives us the greater than 6 foot separation between heads. The National BSA youth protection policies still apply for camps. So those are the rules that are in place on a national basis from Scouts. Doesn't, youth cannot share tents with adults, even family members, and no more than 2 years age difference between youth sharing tents, including family members, right? Even siblings that are more than 2 years apart by BSA youth protection rules are not to share a tent together. To be honest, those rules are, that's something that's part of the youth protection protocols. That's a unit-based level of enforcement. We're not doing tent checks at night, but that's something that the unit is expected to enforce. Question about boy and girl units that are in different sites. No, they're going to be in different cohorts because they're going to be in a cohort based on their campsite, Jeff. So they will be in different cohorts. Doesn't mean that they can't interact and whatnot, but there needs to be some degree of separation between them. How many in a lean-to is 4. Same thing, heads to toes and whatnot. Yes, Scouts can bring their own tents if they wish and set them up in the campsites. Anything else? Okay. Masking requirements. So this is where things got a little confusing the last couple of days because of the health commissioner's letter that got put out, and then the CDC came back and said, and the state education department came back and said, we really don't want to be changing masking requirements for schools with 2 weeks of school left. And so they kind of smacked the state back a little bit on that one. And so the way the protocols are for schools is kind of the way we're going to be interpreting this for now. This is the way we are going to do the masking for camp. Indoors, we are asking everyone, vaccinated or unvaccinated, to wear masks. And one of the reasons that we feel comfortable asking people to do that is because there really are very few times when people are indoors at Rotary. The only facilities that are indoors are the ones that are listed right there. The dining hall, you wear your mask when you come in. As you know, if you've gone to a restaurant, you take the mask off when you start to eat and drink. So you're basically just wearing it in and out. The training post, people aren't in there for very long. The camp office, Scouts are almost never in the camp office. People are usually not in the camp office for very long. So the places where masks are required are pretty minimal in their exposure. And then the Jeff Lodge or the Handicrafts building. Now the Handicrafts building, the reason we're going to ask for masks to be worn in this environment, because if you're familiar with Jeff Lodge, it's a building, but it also has garage doors down both sides, which are wide open during the summertime. So it's kind of like, it's a pavilion with walls, with some walls. The thing is within Handicrafts, you've got Scouts that are, first of all, it tends to be our youngest Scouts, which means they're likely not vaccinated. And they are working close together and close with the instructor because of the work tables for the crafts and stuff like that. And it can get a little crowded in that space. So we are going to ask that people wear masks within Jeff Lodge, even though theoretically you could say it's incredibly well ventilated. It's a pavilion. That would be the one program space where we're asking for that. However, the rest of the outdoor environment, masks are not required. Okay, we are encouraging those individuals who are not fully vaccinated, that means vaccines plus 2 weeks, are strongly encouraged to wear a mask where social distancing is not possible. So, you're walking between your campsite and program area, you don't need a mask. You're sitting down in a program area where there's 20 other people around, that might be a good opportunity to throw on a mask for that session. We are going to encourage those who are unvaccinated to do that, but it is not a requirement. And vaccinated individuals do not need it either. Lee, there's going to be a document that comes out that lists all of this stuff out there. As I said, we're going to publish that has all of this information, as well as the video, which you can provide for folks. Any individual is welcome to wear a mask at any time. So if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, go ahead. So the only thing with that is please don't wear masks in situations where they're going to get wet, because then they're kind of useless. They don't really do anything. So no masks while swimming or showering. Any questions on the masks? I'm not expecting people to wear them while they're swimming or showering. It's part of the regulations. They're not supposed to wear them when they would get wet. Program sites, we will have disposable masks all around camp. We'll have them in program areas. We'll have them in the office. We'll have them all over the place. We will have disposable masks that will be available for that. Cloth masks are good, yes. The way the regulations are written is that masks are supposed to be like a two-ply, a reusable cotton mask similar to this one, a surgical mask. Certainly you can go above grade, the N95s and all the rest of that stuff. The way the regulations are written, bandanas and buffs are not approved masks. So that's just something to keep in mind there. But cloth masks are absolutely okay to wear. Any other mask requirements? All right. Other things as far as just general mitigation steps, hand washing and hand sanitizing will be encouraged throughout the day. Every time the scouts come to the program area, they're going to be directed to go wash their hands and sanitize. So every time they go through, which quite frankly is a really good practice for scout camp, regardless of the COVID environment, getting people to actually wash their hands a little bit more in a very dirty environment is a pretty good idea. So they'll be told, any of you that have been with us on really hot days knows that our protocol is that the staff, when they sign in, they're told, go sign in and take a drink of water, right? Because it's a hot day, we want to make sure they're drinking all day long. Fill your water bottle up. Now it's going to be sign in, take a drink of water, and make sure you wash your hands and sanitize. There are some times where scouts will be using program equipment, say like the rifles, where they are going to be shared between multiple individuals. In that case, there would be sanitizing of the hands between usage. Other kinds of things, you have your own leatherwork materials, you have your own basketry stool, things like that. You're using your own materials, but for something like the rifles, for example, or maybe some of the cope equipment, you sanitize before you use it, and that's how we make sure that there's no transfer to those. One change to something that we talked about the last time we met was that we talked about a daily health screening, a daily attestation. New York is actually requiring 2 health attestation checks each day. So what that means is that before breakfast and before dinner, we're going to need everybody, that includes our staff as well as all participants, to go through an attestation. We are going to ask each unit to designate an adult leader to be the campsite safety officer. Maybe we'll get you guys little badges or something like that, but you'll be the campsite health safety officer, and your job, it really shouldn't take long. We're going to give you a sheet that's going to be pre-printed with your roster. It'll have the attestation questions on it, and basically just have the scouts line up, but separated from one another. It's a little bit of distance there in case anybody has symptoms, and just have them come up. You can just do a quick run through the questions, and you're going to just check pass or fail and hit them with the thermometer. We're going to give you guys all the digital thermometers for the campsites, so you don't need to bring those. If you have them in your first aid kits, great. You got 2. You can split up the chore for some of the larger units and go through the process faster. But we will give you a digital thermometer for that, and we're going to need you to do that before breakfast and before dinner. And then when you come down to the meal, you're just going to turn in the form. The leader's going to just sign the form and turn it in, and that way that we've got that attestation cleared up. If somebody fails the attestation, their temperature is too high, or they have one of the symptoms, we need to immediately separate that individual and make sure that they get to the health officer. So that is that process. Any questions on the attestation? We thought we'd only have to do this once a day, but the state says it's got to be twice a day. So that would be the one change from our last meeting. All righty. Cleaning, the staff is going to be doing regular cleaning throughout the camp, high touch surfaces, doors and dining halls and offices and all that kind of stuff, common areas throughout the day. Program equipment is going to be getting cleaned. program staff is going to be getting trained on how to make sure that their program equipment is cleaned and sanitized. The staff is going to be doubling the frequency with which we normally clean the common area latrines and shower house type facilities in the center of camp. We're going to ask the troops to do a second cleaning of the latrine in your campsite each day as well. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to put a little sign sheet, kind of like what you see in the like the rest stop bathrooms or the fast food restaurants or whatever. The staff comes in, they clean the bathroom, and they sign it. We're going to put those in the latrines as well, so that your scouts or leaders, whoever's responsible for that, the safety officer probably could just sign off on that. Yes, the latrine has been cleaned twice, and that way we'll have a record of that. Our meal service, our dining services are going to be a little bit different this year, but we think it'll work out really well. We have a new cook this year, who I think I saw joined us this evening. I think I saw Sean's name pop up on the roster, so welcome to Sean. He's joining us. Our cook this year, Sean, is actually a longtime scout. He was a camper and a staff member at another council camp, so it's great. He knows what a camp kitchen operation is like, and when you say things like Cracker Barrel, he understands what that means. You don't have to explain it to him like some of our other cooks. But we are going to be running our dining services. We're going to do we're going to have to extend the meal times overall, but basically we're going to do 2 shifts. The schedule's in the leader's guide for how we're going to break that down. We're going to start with the idea that it's going to be a half hour with about 10 minutes of turnover, and then another half hour for the second shift to come through. We'll tinker around with that. Maybe in smaller weeks, we may be able to shift those times so that we don't have to start breakfast quite as early. We may find that we don't really need 30 minutes to get everybody through. We'll play with that a little bit, but you're not going to see the normal program that you would normally see during the dining hall, the songs and cheers and announcements and that sort of stuff, just because of the nature of how this is functioning. And we're going to divide and give you an assigned time based on basically what campsite you're coming from. So typically the earliest, the sites closest to the dining hall will have the first shift, and the sites further away will have the second shift to come in and take their meals. What you'll do is you'll come in, basically what you may remember is the buffet line that is set up in the middle of the dining hall has been changed perpendicular to where it was previously. It's now across the doors of the kitchen, and you're going to go down the buffet line, which is now a cafeteria style line, coming from the trading post end of the line, and walk down, get your hot items. It will be served by staff members, cafeteria style. Folks coming to us from Waukpamani are used to this. That's how Waukpamani has served the last several years. And then the cold stuff, where you would normally have options for salad or things like yogurts and fresh fruit and that kind of stuff, instead of having the ability to make your own at a salad bar, we're going to have pre-made salads, the individual servings of yogurts and fruit cups and that kind of thing, and you'll just grab those and go. So it'll be a combination of some cafeteria, combination of some grab and go kinds of stuff. That's a great question about the cleaning supplies. We will provide all cleaning supplies to you. We'd ask that you please not bring cleaning supplies for the latrines or anything like that. If you need cleaning supplies, you run out of something, you just let us know. We'll get you more of it, but we will provide the cleaning supplies that we need for that, because we want to make sure we're using the right stuff, the same stuff. And something important, I'll talk about this with the leaders when we have our regular meetings, but please make sure that when we're cleaning the latrines, that no cleaning chemicals, that includes any like wipes or anything like that, don't put any of that stuff into the hole of the latrine, because that's going to kill the bacteria that are actually breaking down the contents and helping with the smell. Your latrine will smell worse if you put rags or paper towels or things like that that have cleaning chemicals into the latrine. So, but we will provide you with the materials. So our dining hall will be limited to 50% capacity. Basically, we're going to ask for social distancing at the tables, capacity of 4 per table. Our dining hall is well ventilated. It's got the 2 ends of the dining hall are screens, so we do have the ventilation there. And I talked about the cafeteria style model. Anything on food services? All right, medical services. We will have an isolation area. We're going to set up a tent outside the health lodge just in case we do need to quarantine someone at some point. We will put them out there. Our expectation is that quarantine for a symptomatic scout is not going to be for very long, because the first thing we're going to be doing is calling the parents and asking them to come pick that scout up. We're going to remove them from camp. If it's an adult, we're going to ask you to remove yourself or get somebody to come pick you up if necessary. But we are going to ask that that person be taken home and immediately taken for a test. And the rapid test actually can be used based on the standards that have been put forth, can be used to diagnose somebody who's been removed for symptoms. So that could get us a very quick return to know whether somebody is symptomatic or not, which would help with those that are still back in camp, because if you've been around somebody who's suspected, we're going to need to start looking at quarantining individuals. If somebody tests positive, the rest of their cohort will need to be quarantined. The thing about that is, if we have to quarantine you for several days, we're only a 7-week program or 7-day program. It doesn't make a lot of sense for people to be sitting in their tents or in their campsite for 3 days because they get quarantined on a Wednesday. So if other people in the troop are quarantined because a scout tests positive, then we're in effect going to say, you should probably go home. We're going to ask them to go home. We'll work with them to return if there's more time left in the season to return to finish out their program. We'll certainly work with them on that. But sitting in a tent for the duration of a quarantine, which could last 10 days, doesn't seem to be a lot of fun or make a lot of sense for anyone. The expectation is that if the person tests negative, they would be allowed to return, yes. And anybody that is fully vaccinated does not need to quarantine. Okay, even if they are in contact with somebody who tests positive, a fully vaccinated person does not need to quarantine. So that's why, again, when we talk about the incentives to scouts to get tested, to get quarantined, too many medical terms. The incentive for people to get vaccinated, whether it's scouts or adults, is, for one, you're not getting sent home if somebody else in the troop tests positive, because you're not going to need to be quarantined. If somebody fails the morning review in a sense of the health lodge, it would probably be a good idea, if at least for the time being, until we can get the medical officer to take a look at them, that they don't be coming down to the dining hall and potentially exposing others. And then we'll work through that as the time comes. It doesn't necessarily mean that they would need to be quarantined overall, but at least giving us a chance to figure out what's going on if somebody fails the morning attestation.
So the rest of the cohort should stand fast until we find out. We don't send them to the dining hall.
That's what I'm saying. Not necessarily that they would need to be quarantined for the day, but at least giving us a chance to let the medical officer talk to them, let us consult with DOH if we need to. Like, we may be able to say, okay, you go. But if it's 5 minutes before breakfast and you find that one person may be positive, remember their tent mate may be positive as well. So, may have been exposed as well. So better to give us a little bit of time to sort through things before you start introducing that potentially into the rest of the population. Did
I read before also that we shouldn't just send the scout who had the issue, but also their tent mate to the?
It's a good idea. Well, you should be sending them with a buddy. They need to have a buddy to be going somewhere. The best buddy would probably be their tent mate, because that's the person who's had the most contact with them already, and we may need to be talking to them a little bit about their possible exposure. Now, that doesn't mean that they should be walking like shoulder to shoulder or arm in arm. Like, I'd be putting a little bit of distance between me and the person who may have some symptoms, but yes, they need to be sent with somebody else. So we have testing opportunities. So the thing is there are lots of places that can do the testing. When we talked before about the rapid tests, like, there are places within 20 to 30 minutes of camp that can do the rapid testing. Pharmacies are doing it. They're doing PCR tests as well. We'd rather probably a rapid test in that circumstance, because then that could potentially release the rest of the troop out of quarantine faster. But I'm not so much worried about, like, we're going to ask the parent to come pick them up and take them to get tested, as opposed to the camp investing in buying a bunch of tests, which is not cheap, and having them on site that we may never use. If we were in the back of the Adirondacks, if we were, an hour and a half away from the nearest pharmacy that was doing testing, we'd be having to develop our own internal testing protocol. I think we are so close. I mean, I can send somebody down to Wine and Skill or West Sand Lake to get a test at a pharmacy, and that's a lot easier. So the challenge is going to be for some of you that are coming from a little bit further on. this is where you're going to want to have a conversation with your parents about the expectations here of, and especially our friends coming from Maryland, as to what would you do in the case of one of your scouts test positive where the parent is not in camp? And is the parent going to come get them? Or are we going to have the parents authorize unit leaders to take them down to get the test? If the unit leader or staff member are vaccinated, then that shouldn't be a problem transporting them, right? Even if there's potential, exposure to somebody who is positive because you're vaccinated. But that's a conversation for those that are coming from a little bit further away are going to want to have with their parents. Most of our units, that's less of an issue because parents can certainly get there within 24 hours. Yeah, if we have to ask you to stand fast, we're going to bring you breakfast, Rick. We're not going to make you starve. So we'll bring out some food if we have that situation. And just back to Rob's question, vaccinated people, you live in life as normal. So, if your tent mate tests positive, but you're vaccinated, you just go about your day, right? Your program is still the same. You get to go do what you were scheduled to do. So that's really, you're seeing some really big differences in the protocols between those who are vaccinated and those who are not. Those who are vaccinated do not have to do the pre-camp testing. Those who are vaccinated do not have to be quarantined if somebody in their cohort tests positive. So the more people you have that are vaccinated, the better. And there's a lot less risk involved with those individuals. I think I got all the questions that are in the chat box there. Okay. Altered activities. Again, we are strongly discouraging any non-essential visitors. Basically, the way the state guidelines are set up, any non-essential visitors are not supposed to be coming to camp. That's why we're not doing parents' night. We're asking people to do that. So if there's some sort of an emergency type situation, or we do have, for example, you may know we have volunteers that sometimes come in during the week as commissioners or to help with different jobs around camp, help with swim tests on Sundays or things like that. Our rule for those individuals and anybody else that's coming in as a visitor to camp is they must be vaccinated. Not those other things that we said at the beginning. That's for participants. If you're coming in as a camper, if you're coming in as an adult leader to be there with the troop, you can do the test with the PCR test, the rapid test. You can have the disease within 3 months. But if you're just coming in as a visitor or coming in as somebody that is like one of our day staff to help out, the requirement is that you must have the vaccine. And so that's a much more strict regulation for that population. We're asking as much as possible to limit the trips out of camp. Sometimes we had, the kids that are going to baseball games 3 days of the week or, summer school every morning, those kinds of things. We'd ask you to please not be doing those kinds of activities this year as much as possible. And I know that this is a challenge for some units to try to minimize the rotational leadership, or, if somebody comes in for a couple of days, they're done for the week. If somebody else that comes in finishes the week, kind of thing, as opposed to coming in and going to work every day. If we could try to maintain as much consistency with adult leadership as possible, that would really help us maintain the sanctity of these cohorts. I know it's a struggle for you folks to find adult leaders. Sometimes you're going to do what you need to do, but if we could try to minimize that as much as possible, really appreciate that. So we talked about the no parents night barbecue. I'm still trying to figure out what we're going to do about campfires. I mean, I can go to a Mets game this weekend with 40,000 people and cheer on Jacob deGrom, but if in summer camp we've got to have people wearing red wristbands be 6 feet away from the people that are wearing blue wristbands and 6 feet away from the people wearing yellow wristbands, and suddenly the campfire crowd starts to get pretty big and spread out and everything. And what do you do when you get to a campfire? You scream and yell and sing and do all of the very things that you're really not supposed to be doing in a COVID environment. So that's the reason why all the music classes have been having their music classes in parking lots and on the seating areas of auditoriums all summer long, or all school year long. So we're still not sure what we're going to do with that. If we don't have a full campfire, then what we're looking at is the idea that units can have campfires within their campsites, and the staff will travel around, and little smaller groups of staff will travel around and visit those campfires to provide some scout spirit. Okay. So let's see. And something like the campfire thing may also depend a little bit on the size of the week. It may work easier in some weeks than others based on the attendance of the particular week. Let's see. If we bring rapid tests with us, will the medical staff assist us, and will that test be valid to determine if the individual has to quarantine? I would guess so. We could certainly have that conversation, Dusan, and look at that. And whatever the protocols are for administering and getting the test results on that, certainly if it's a valid rapid test, then we can do that. Our troop is covered with enough adult coverage. Can other leaders come during the week, or is this being discouraged and only 3 leaders are allowed? Other leaders can come, but if you're telling me that you've got 3 covered, but you've got another adult that just wants to come up for the nights, but they've got to go into work during the day, that one probably shouldn't come, because they're coming in and out all the time, and that's increasing our risk. If you've got 5 or 6, if you need 3 leaders, but you've got 6 that are going to be there all week, or at least like a good chunk of the week, that's fine. Because the idea is maintaining the cohort. So once they're in the cohort, they're good. It's the ins and outs that are the problem. So we don't care how many leaders are there, as long as the cohort is maintained. We are planning on closing the basketball court and the Gaga ball pit. I know that's going to make me rather unpopular with a lot of folks, but
you better put alligators in that Gaga pit.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to see what we need to do to disable that. But the problem is, those are passive activities that kids can just go and do without any staff around. So we can't monitor the separation, we can't monitor the cohorts. And if we ever have to do a contact trace, if a kid who spent all Thursday night at the basketball courts, comes and is tested positive, and there were 15 other kids there, and he's like, we asked, who were you with? And he's like, I don't know, there was that tall kid from the other troop, and the guy in the red shirt, and we can't do any contact tracing in that. So unfortunately, this will be a non-Gaga. We lasted like 97 years or so, 96 years without a Gaga ball pit. So I think we can make it one more. And the basketball court will have to come down as well. All right. That's my hour and 15 is not bad for to get through all of that. So that's not too bad. Questions?
Right, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jean.
There's been, previously you've done some adult leader training, for Scoutmaster training.
Yep.
During the week. Would that be a possibility?
I'm going to throw that over to our wonderful program director, Janet. She's on.
Is my mic on?
Yes, your mic is on.
So we as a training team have been working on that. We have week 3 and 4 covered. We're still looking for adult leaders that will cover the training for those leaderships on week 1, 2, and 5, possibly
Janet,
6.
This is Will.
So we have 2 of those weeks covered that we know of.
Jab,
And
this
we'll
is
be
Will.
offering IOLS for all of those, for what we can. And some of the leaders are happy to do assistant scoutmaster and scoutmaster leader specifics. However, right now, those are all video led. So bringing a leader in for those to teach that course is literally bringing somebody in to click the mouse for you. We will have that training available online full time in the office. So that's the easier option. We do have some leaders that are willing to do it in person and take on all the questions as well.
Janet, this is Will. We've had some leader issues, so I'm not going to be able to commit to that IOLS for week 3. I sent Cheryl an email the other day.
Okay, thank you, Will. We'll update that schedule, that information. So that'll depend a little bit on the week. And if you have if you didn't get all that from Janet, if you want to shoot Janet an email, you can we can get that information. And that's also something because, as Will just suggested, sometimes things change because these adult leader programs are typically offered by volunteers who are coming from off property. Sometimes it's by folks that are in camp for the week, but usually it's people that are coming from off property to provide this service for us. So there may be circumstances that develop between now and then that affects their availability. That's one of the things that we will talk about with each week's leaders when I have that pre-meeting on that previous Monday. We'll give you the latest as to which trainings are going to, which trainings we expect will be available the following week. Okay. Question about when is the absolute last day we can put through adults for the DCJS background check. So the way the DCJS background check works for us is that if you have more than, I forget what the number is, it's like, I think it's 20, 10, 20, 15, something like that. Anyway, if you have more than that number of people, you send them a spreadsheet. I just email them a spreadsheet with all of the names and all the rest of that on there. And then they just send me back a list that says, we ran 325 names and everybody cleared. If we have fewer than, I think it's 15 names or something like that, we have to call it in. We have to have a staff member call in the office, go through their menus to get to the person, to get to a live person, give them the name, give them the date of birth, all the first year we did this, we had a lot of units not give us their information. That was an incredibly labor-intensive process for our office staff to have to every week call in more people because people did not provide us with the names ahead of time. The second year we did it, the following years we did it, folks got a lot better about providing those names in advance. We had fewer people that we had to call in to do that. We do not have a full-time office manager. So basically those calls would be done by me or Janet or our commissioner. And there's a lot of other things that we're trying to do as well. So what we're asking is, this is why we say, if you have any inkling that a person might possibly come to camp, run them through now. So in terms of the question, when is the last day? As soon as possible. I'm probably going to run that in about a week or so. I gave you a June 1st deadline because I wanted everybody to get it in with the knowledge that, you set the deadline here, knowing that the real deadline's a little bit after that. Then I'm still collecting information, but about another week, I would say, is when I'll send in the big master list. And then anything after that is going to require us to kind of do those little nickel and dime calls. So it would be very well appreciated if we could get everybody's information in before that. And as I said, for somebody, the real trick is if somebody comes in on a Sunday with the troop, like the first year we did this, I had a troop come in with no adult leaders cleared. They walked in on a Sunday and none of them had been put in. And technically I should not have allowed them to stay on Sunday, but we allowed them to stay into Monday. It's not something that we're going to do. But it was the first year, people were still figuring the process out. But basically, if you come in on a Sunday, I can't call the state. If you come in after 5 o'clock on a weekday, I can't call the state until the next day. And so we're not going to allow that person to stay over until we can get that background check verification. All right. Other questions? All right, well, again, I want to put a shout out to our Council Health and Safety Committee that has done a lot of work over the last couple of months helping with working through all this process with me and with Frank up at Waukpamani. They've been a tremendous help in bringing their expertise and experience to help decipher some of this stuff coming down from the state. And I want to thank you all for your patience and for tuning into these sessions here so that we could get the word out to you all. I'm excited to be going out to camp this weekend and working with the staff and doing training and doing all the normal stuff of camp and then being able to see all of you over the next couple of months. So thanks for choosing us for camp this summer. I look forward to seeing all of you. This video will be posted to our YouTube channel and I'll send the link out to you as well. Hopefully it's not like the Titanic, like the background shot that just came up there. That's good. For my meeting last night, the Health and Safety Committee meeting, I put up a picture from Groundhog Day, the movie, because that's kind of where I felt we were at with all this process. But anyway, have a wonderful rest of your evening, folks, and we'll see you out at camp. I don't anticipate doing another one of these again unless something big happens. So we'll see you at camp.